Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So, innovation. What is innovation about? Over the last 20 years, I've been doing innovation at Marel. And we make all kinds of machines, small and also really big ones, up to the size of a football field or something like that. So for me, innovation is about taking an idea and turning it into a product that adds value for the customer. You know, this process that you go through when you're innovating. You start by having an idea, and you can take many roads from the idea until you have the actual product ready. So it's important to select the right road. So if you go through this process, you have the idea, you start doing some sketching just to discuss various possible solutions. And then you start doing some prototypes. Design the prototype first, put it together, and then you start testing. And you might even go all the way to the customer to test your prototype under real conditions to get a real feedback on your idea. But how do you know that you have selected the right road and that you are on the right track with your idea? Well, you know it first when you start testing your prototype. And that's the thing, you start testing it and then you get your first feedback. The feedback says, okay, this is going to work or this is not going to work. And the time that you might need until you get a valid feedback on your prototype, it can be weeks or even months. At least at Marel, this is normally the case. We might need a long time until we have a good feedback. So how can we shorten this time? How can we make this more effective? And well, we can simply shorten the time until a valid feedback is available. To do that, we can use simulation and virtual reality. The thing is that you start running your idea in a simulated world and you have the feedback right away. So you can say it's like a rapid prototyping. So that means that the time that the time until the feedback is there, it will change, and it will go from weeks or months down to days or even hours. But when you simulate something, you normally have a 2D view or something like that. So simulation is not enough. It doesn't give you the lifelike feedback that you need. And that's where virtual reality comes into the picture. Virtual reality that can give you lifelike feedback up to a certain level. Of course, you cannot touch your prototype, but you can interact with it. And you can be in the same room as the prototype. You can observe physical sizes and dimensions. Really, walk around the prototype and just see it in front of you. So what tools are available to do this thing? when you search on the internet for tools for simulating something like that, then there are a few of them available. And it was quite interesting when I was looking at these tools. I didn't find any prices. I don't know what that says, but quite interesting actually. So, but it's only in the recent years that virtual reality has become available. So a little bit more about virtual reality. It is mainly driven by the game industry. And it's only not many years since we started getting instruments for that have a, let's say, reasonable price. But the same industry drives the development of game engines. And game engines, they can mimic the real world in real time. So, and that is really interesting. So what is a game engine? A game engine is a framework to run computer games. It can contain, or it definitely contains physical engine to handle all the physics. It contains collision detection or collision management, because things collide in the real world and have to do that there too. It contains a rendering engine, because we need to create nice images of what the world is about. And it manages sound, networking, and even artificial intelligence. Okay, so I want to show you a small demonstration. I'm just going to run here an example that where I'm going to use a game engine to try out a simple machine. And this machine is supposed to take a fish that is coming on a conveyor belt with the head first, and it's going to flip it over. It is supposed to come with the tail first. Sounds very, very simple, but can be quite tricky. So, okay, we did put together a team, and the team has one mechanical designer. He does the actual design. He's the guy that is really going to say how things are gonna work. But we also have a software developer, and he is responsible for the simulation. He's just there to make sure that everything works as expected for the mechanical engineer. Okay, so they were put together, and the tools that they were using for this, it was a Unity game engine, a VR headset, and a powerful computer, simply a good game computer. Okay, so they started doing some sketches, or let's say the mechanical design did do some sketches. And various methods were discussed. I mean, when this machine has to take into account, the length of the fish, belt speed, friction factors, all kinds of things. There's a lot of things that you have to consider, because you might have a dry belt in the morning and so on. Things are quite different. And after some discussions, and I think they spent about half an hour discussing various ideas, they started doing some simulation and testing. And they had 5 ideas that they wanted to try out. But when you're going to try out something like this, it's really important that the product that you're going to run through this machine is real. That is, it must be very well simulated. So that was the first thing. Here we see a simulation of a fish falling from a conveyor belt into a box. And as you can see, it looks very real. And in the end, it falls on the floor. And you can see, I mean, there are totally different factors there. The friction on the belt, on the floor, in the bin, quite different. Okay, so the first method that I used was the horizontal turnaround. I'm just calling it that. It's nothing but a very simple box in the middle of two belts. The fish comes from the left there, is turned around, looks pretty simple. Okay, so, but didn't quite work, as you see. Not exactly what they wanted. And I think, yeah, probably not the right solution. So they continued, started trying out the next method. This is actually pretty good. No, not this one. Okay, I think it gets stuck in the end there and totally blocks everything. Yeah, this one, exactly. So the next method, it was the rollover box. This is actually the method I like the most because it has a lot of nice things. Very simple. Okay, one fish there on the side, but you know, very accurate flow and probably could handle pretty high throughput. The size doesn't really matter. But you know, it works. They have the feedback they needed. It's there. So, okay, two methods have been tried out. And they continue. The third method, buffering a rollover box, similar to the one that you are seeing. But sometimes we use machines that do something like that to buffer also. We sometimes need to buffer things up. And that is this one here. This one, yeah, you'll just see what happens. Looks quite good, although the fish gets stuck there. So this is the first feedback. Okay, it doesn't work quite well. So what they do, or what you can't do here, because I'm simulating this, I simply stop the simulation. I go into a parameter that controls the starting angle of the wheel, turn it a little bit, and then let's see what happens. Okay, the fish comes, falls a little bit into the box, so it is a little bit higher on the other side, and everything works perfectly. Okay, next method. This one is really, really simple. What is good here is that you on one conveyor belt, there is nothing turning or anything. It's just a plate on the side. The fish slides up there and then turns around. It works almost right, not quite. You can see that it needs some adjustments. And you can see the length of the first plate to the second plate there. It's a little bit too short for the big fish. So what the mechanical designer does, he just goes there into different mode and he just starts playing around, adjust the machine as it is running. Because for him, this is like running it in the real world. The fish is well enough simulated so he can trust the results coming out of this. And he can do all kinds of adjustments there. Now he's turning the angle of the plate, and later on he's going to turn up the speed of the belt. And he even goes and changes the friction factors on the belt to see what happens. So I think now, the belt speed is on 1.3 meters, and he takes it up there to, I think, 2 meters. Still working, okay, it goes a little bit higher than the fish, but looks quite good. So the feedback is there. One other method, I have to show you this one because the software designer, he had this idea. It's a turning wheel. It's very simple, actually quite elegant, but didn't work as expected. But it's quite interesting, actually. If you could synchronize the wheel and the belt, you would probably have a pretty nice machine. You know, this method, to try this method out, it took 12 minutes from the time when the idea was born until it was running like this. 12 minutes. So what you learned from this experiment is that the total time that we have spent on prototyping and testing, it took 4.5 hours to try out these different methods. So the mechanical designers at Marel, they told me, if we were going to do this test, well, we're talking about 4 to 8 weeks. Why is it so long? I mean, we have to have real products. Then we would have to put something together, and this just takes time. So having this possibility to do the simulation is just amazing. You have the feedback immediately. One other thing that we learned with this experiment is that because of this immediate response, then it boosts creativity a lot, because you have an idea and you take this idea and you try it out and you have the response immediately and a new idea is born. So this is very important. This is actually something that we didn't think of. But okay, so simulating a small machine is pretty easy in a game engine. But what about really big systems? Like I said in the beginning, we make machines that cover a whole football field. These systems, they go through the same process. You start with an idea, you do some sketching, prototype drawings, prototype testing, and of course, this whole process, there's a lot of iterations involved. Well, there is one difference. You don't do prototype testing with a big system. It's just not possible. You know, you couldn't just create a system like this just as a prototype. It's way too expensive. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of space. So overall, for big systems, no prototypes. And what you do normally is you first test at the customer site, and that is really expensive. And it is also time consuming. You need a lot of time, and that's with a lot of people to do these tests. But you could use simulation and virtual reality to help you. You know, if you can simulate a big system, you could fix software bugs, you could improve hardware design, you could even notice process flaws, and that is really important because finding a process flaw in your machine when you have it installed at the customer site, you can imagine how much it costs. You would have to redesign something and build stuff, ship it over to the customer, all of these problems. If you want to simulate a big system, you have to simulate everything. At least that is what we have found out. the thing is, the simulation, it needs to create all the signals that are needed for the computers that are supposed to control the system. And there should be no difference between running the actual system, the actual hardware, and the simulated one. At Marel, we decided to do an experiment on this. We took a really big system and we simulated the whole thing. This is just a image from it. It's only small part, probably 1/5. I cannot show you the whole system. It's forbidden because of some stuff. So the results that came out of this test were quite interesting. We could run 100% controlled tests, and we could repeat them over and over again. So that meant we have a lot of software fixes. We could do some mechanical and functional tests. Let me give you one example. There was a slide at the end of one conveyor. It took a 180-degree turn. And when we were simulating this, we noticed that the fish actually got stuck in there. So we changed it. And that means when we can run these tests, we can do corrections and improvements to the design. We could also do process flow tests, and we found one error in our process flow when we were running these tests. We had already built a part of the system, and it was rebuilt afterwards because it wasn't right. And when we tried to run the software against the machine, we had problems with it. So we changed it. We found actually a much better solution after the simulations. So again, it gave us corrections and improvements to the design. Now, virtual reality, I haven't said much about it yet, but the thing is, this virtual reality, it gave the mechanical designers this live-like feedback that they needed. When you're standing in the same room as the machine, like they could do, they could walk around. I mean, one of the machines there is 3 meters high, I think. There is a platform on the side, and you could stand on the platform. And just being there in this virtual reality, you had this feeling that you had this physical feedback that you needed. And they detected security issues. You could put your hand here on the top somewhere and maybe cut a finger off or something like that. Also, quite interesting is the production. We found out that when we showed the production, the machine, and we allowed them to go through the whole system, they told us they had a better idea about how to put the machine together because it's a really big machine. So just this thing of being there and getting this feedback was for them also really important. So this experiment was a success for us. So what have we learned from it? We can definitely shorten the time for testing and actually shorten the time until we have the machine on the market. But there are other things. We could give this simulation to the customer, and he could start training on the system before he starts using it. And we could use data from him. He could run it through again and again and again until he's happy with how to control the whole thing. Because big machines, they can be, big plants actually. It takes a time to run everything smooth through them. So that means the customer could also start training his field engineers. We can create errors in the system. And that means we'd have a better trained field engineers and better service. And then we could use the simulation as a training system for the Marel service. So we would have better trained field engineers, and we would deliver a better service to the customers. And we could also create material for sales and marketing, because with these game engines, you can create really, really nice renderings, beautiful images. That means we would have a better trained sales personnel. They could run the game, and we would have better sales material. So, to wrap things up, this has been quite interesting for us to run these tests and try this out. And I think I can say for sure that it's a big step forward in getting the machines, quicker on the market, shorten the time, and to save a lot of money everywhere. Thank you.